And so I went and I read basically every book, fiction, nonfiction, Orwell written. I sent off for a literature textbook that was like 800 pages long of his letters, because he was high-level Fabian socialist in the club, and it was so horrifying to him what they were planning to do to people, he put it in fiction and wrote 1984 to warn the world. And when you hear this, you understand this is the actual plan, okay? Power is in tearing human minds to pieces and putting them together again in new shapes of your own choosing. Do you begin to see, then, what kind of world we're creating? It is the exact opposite of the stupid, hedonistic utopias that the old reformers imagined. A world of fear and treachery and torment. A world of trampling and being trampled upon. A world which will grow not less but more merciless as it refines itself. Progress in our world will be a progress towards more pain. The old civilizations claimed they were founded on love or justice. Ours is founded upon hatred. There will be no love except the love of Big Brother. In our world, there will be no emotions except fear, rage, triumph, and self-abasement. Everything else we shall destroy. Everything.
Conspiracy theorists like Alex Jones and David Icke often reference Orwell's and Huxley's novels as being an accurate depiction of the elite's endgame, creating a narrative regarding the future unfolding of events that, unfortunately, the majority of prophetically minded Christians have incorporated into their interpretations of the prophecies contained in the books of Daniel and Revelation. Consequently, many Christians have come to see Orwell's and Huxley's visions as the fulfillment of the prophecies of the Antichrist in his earthly kingdom, and have thus dedicated a great deal of time and effort to exposing the New World Order, believing it to be Satan's true endgame and preparing the world for the Antichrist. But there are several major problems with this view. For one, how could Orwell and Huxley, both of whom were vehemently opposed to the Bible and Christianity, have been given such accurate visions of biblical end-times prophecy, if in fact the New World Order is the fulfillment of the books of Daniel and Revelation? Another major problem is that not only is belief in the existence of the New World Order becoming more and more widespread, but there seems to be a growing movement resisting New World Order tyranny. And perhaps most disturbing of all, from a biblical point of view, is that so many of those leading this resistance movement against the New World Order have an overtly anti-biblical agenda.
That's what I'm here to do, to help people to understand, to get back in tune with the divine nature of the universe. And I believe that that's going to be required very soon, because when all the systems break down and the Christians for the first time begin to think about it, where is Jesus? I would have thought he would be back by now.
There is not going to be a second coming of Christ.
There is no guy going to appear on a cloud to judge the human race or change the world.
The Christians think they're going to see a Messiah come in the clouds, where there's, which is ridiculous. We have to stop looking for an external Messiah. What's going to save us is us. I've seen the Messiah, and the Messiah is us.
Very good.
Unfortunately, the vast majority of Christians who study the New World Order and directly connect it with end-times prophecy have not entertained the possibility of spiritual deception with regard to how the Matrix has been exposed and presented by Orwell, Huxley, and the conspiracy media. The rapid rate at which the Illuminati's plans are being revealed, not only by critics and whistleblowers, but by the elite themselves, suggests that perhaps Big Brother's plans of global domination are a massive red herring that are being revealed for deceptive purposes, in order to serve an even grander agenda, one that has nothing at all to do with the New World Order or the so-called matrix of control. Numerous places in the Bible tell us that, unfortunately, the vast majority of humanity will not be saved because they have turned their hearts against God and refused to believe. As Christ tells us in Matthew chapter 7, narrow is the path that leads to life, and few find it. and the book of Revelation makes it clear that most of the world, having rejected God in their hearts, will be deceived by the Antichrist, the beast from the sea, and his false prophet, the beast from the earth. But if the vast majority of the world will be deceived by the Antichrist, then why are so many rebelling against the New World Order, if in fact it is where the true spirit of Antichrist is manifesting? And again, why are so many leaders of this growing rebellion movement opposed to the Bible and its vision of the future, believing it to be part of the very control system that enslaves us?
And this is what we have to resist. We have to resist this siren song of greed coming from the military-industrial complex and the sort of orthodox eschatologists, the people who would like to figure out how to precipitate an end of the world scenario, like these books Left Behind and all this sort of fundamentalism. Those are the guys running this program.
Yeah.
These classified programs are filled with really kooky people from the lunatic fringe of the religious extremists.
And he said, but right now I want to tell you one thing for sure. We in the FBI and your government does not see you as a threat. But if ever you're going to seriously be in trouble, let me tell you who your enemy will be. It's going to be the church. It's most likely going to be the Catholic Church, but it's going to be the church. Christian church will be your enemy, because the Christian church is the biggest organized criminal syndicate in the world. And we know it. The people who are actually running Christianity, both Protestant and Catholic, behind the scenes are the world's best criminals. And we know that. So he says, so when you're messing with the church, you're messing with underworld criminal syndicates. Money, politics, sex, drugs, the whole thing. They're running it. And we know that.
The concept of the false flag is well known in the conspiracy community, which claims that the globalists use false flag operations to further their agenda of control. A false flag is defined as, quote, an attack or other hostile action that obscures the identity of the participants carrying out the action, while implicating another group or nation as the perpetrator. The greatest example of this is 9/11. Conspiracy theorists believe that the American government attacked its own country and falsely blamed it on Muslim extremists to justify a phony war in the Middle East and increase government control. The formula is quite simple: problem, reaction, solution, also known as the Hegelian dialectic. A crisis is manufactured, a phony enemy is blamed for it, a response is demanded, and the solution is offered. A solution which seems to be for the greater good, but in reality only serves the agenda, the ones truly responsible for the initial crisis itself. The true enemy creates a situation whereby he becomes the hero of the people. As Rahm Emanuel once said,
you never want a serious crisis to go to waste. And what I mean by that, it's an opportunity to do things that you think you could not do before.
While the concept of the false flag is easily understood within the physical realm, it never seems to be applied solely to the spirit realm. Though many believe the top New World Order elites are in direct communication with and ultimately working for some kind of spiritual or interdimensional beings, this narrative still includes human beings who are in full knowledge of what the spirits are ultimately planning. What I am suggesting, however, is the possibility of a massive false flag operation that has been carried out solely by deceptive spirits, who have not brought any human, elite or otherwise, into the fold. What if Satan and his angels have been secretly carrying out their own false flag operation from which the entire human race has been completely compartmentalized? What if for centuries Satan has been creating a massive problem or crisis, a dark, menacing prison planet, ruled by a secret group of elite bloodlines bent on controlling the world with the intention of eventually exposing it in order to engender a reaction from mankind, who will then demand that something be done about it, at which point Satan will offer the solution. Just as Islamic terrorists were framed for 9/11, what if God and his angels were being framed for creating the New World Order? What if the New World Order itself was the real false flag operation, and Satan was now exposing it in order to paint the God of the Bible as the ultimate enemy of mankind, in order to justify an entirely different kind of war over the minds and souls of the human race?
What is that where they announce world government in hundreds of newspapers, but then if you talk about it, the Southern Poverty Law Center and ADL say you must be a terrorist? I mean, this is propaganda I would design, David, to wake people up against me.
A passage in 2 Thessalonians gives us a perfect picture of the sort of mindset that will encompass the world once the Antichrist has finally been revealed. 2 Thessalonians 2:9-12 reads, "The coming of the lawless one is according to the working of Satan, with all power, signs, and lying wonders, and with all unrighteous deception among those who perish, because they did not receive the love of the truth, that they might be saved. And for this reason God will send them strong delusion, that they should believe the lie, that they all may be condemned who did not believe the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness." This passage clearly tells us that once the Antichrist arrives, mankind will be deluded by a lie. And when we understand the biblical story as a whole, it becomes quite clear just what this lie is. According to the book of Genesis, the fall of man came as a result of believing the lie, "Ye shall be as gods," spoken by that serpent of old, Satan, who deceives the whole world. From the very beginning of human history, Satan's goal has been to convince man that he is God. It's therefore reasonable to assume that through the Antichrist, Satan will seek to consummate the work he started all the way back in the Garden of Eden by initiating mankind into the religion of human divinity. This is true Satanism or Luciferianism, not participation in ritualistic blood sacrifice or the literal worship of the devil, but simply believing that one is on equal footing with the Creator. The lie that man is divine is, therefore, the true essence of the Antichrist agenda, the real Luciferian philosophy, which ultimately aims at convincing mankind that it is godlike, powerful, without sin or blemish, inherently free, and capable of transcending to higher levels of being. These ideals, however, are completely at odds with the agenda of the New World Order and Illuminati, whose goal, as we are told over and over again by the conspiracy media, is to disempower and enslave us. This is why they poison our food and water, give us diseases and cancer, control our minds through the media, entertainment, consumerism, and politics. How then can the New World Order and the Antichrist agendas be one and the same? The simple answer is, they aren't. Satan may see mankind as nothing but pawns to manipulate, but subjugation through force is not his way. Rather, Satan's MO is to spread spiritually deadly messages disguised as positivity or empowerment, which feed into man's hubris, giving him delusions of grandeur. Satan is not interested in turning mankind into slaves. What he wants is a human race blinded from the light of the gospel, thoroughly convinced that it is God and in no need of a savior but themselves, which, interestingly, is the very message underlying the New World Order resistance movement, which is being spearheaded by the conspiracy and New Age communities.
Almost any time that we create a religion, we're in a huge mess. Because ultimately, all the great teachers were trying to steer us towards experiential knowing rather than worshiping a book, which is fundamentally flawed as soon as you write it down. And I really want to imbue that to others, this notion that you are the one you're looking for. You are your Savior, because the experience of omniscient awareness that we all have, we are the awareness of the universe. And when we become inspired, we touch parts of that, the most basic fundamental truths that you will find in meditation. That's what we call ageless wisdom, the knowledge that just downloads to you when you go into a state of meditation.
The lie that man is God is the root of what are known as the ageless wisdom or mystery school teachings, which have been the basis of Eastern mystical religions such as Buddhism and Hinduism, as well as the various branches of Western esotericism and occultism, including Platonism, Freemasonry, Rosicrucianism, and Theosophy. In recent decades, these teachings have been disseminated on an unprecedented scale through the New Age movement. Though many Christian prophecy researchers have portrayed the New Age as part of the larger New World Order agenda, the evidence simply does not support this notion. Believing themselves to be workers of light, New Agers abhor the so-called works of darkness, and from their perspective, there is nothing darker or more sinister than the New World Order agenda and its Illuminati architects. Interestingly, the subject of the Illuminati and their global conspiracy is a frequent topic of messages communicated by spirits through channeling, a process popular within the New Age whereby a person opens themselves up to become a direct conduit of one or more spiritual entities who speak through the person telepathically, communicating whatever messages or spiritual teachings the entities wish to convey. Those who participate in these spiritual collaborations are easy targets for deception, which is why this practice is explicitly condemned in the Bible. Masquerading as benevolent spirits or extraterrestrials, satanic entities quite frequently speak of the Illuminati and their dark plans in an apparent attempt to warn humanity of their global conspiracy.
It doesn't matter who you speak to. It doesn't matter even speaking to lovely intuitive sources in the other world. I can say without exception, all of them have said, even if they don't choose to go into it, yes, there are forces that are interfering with the people of your planet. And that goes without exception. In every intuitive source, every channeler we featured on Gaia have privately, when I've spoken to them, said, they're being said, yes, you are being interfered with. Your job is to break that.
The reason people feel so isolated and the reason that people are so in pain is because of the fragmented humanity that they are existing in. Humanity has been designed to connect and to be a tribe, and yet through the evolution process and through the control of certain forces, you would call them government, although we would argue that what you see presented as your government is not actually the government, it is the display people for the government.
What is your exact description when you're saying for the government, the forces that control?
We would say that this is clear everywhere you go, as in, often what you perceive as the person in charge is not in charge. So when we say there are governing bodies behind your government, we mean exactly that. There are people who have a certain amount of control regarding the resources and the freedoms on this planet, and some of those people, not all, but some of those people have very dark agendas.
In her book, The Robes, a book of coming changes, Penny Kelly details the seemingly prophetic information revealed to her by a group of extraterrestrials, known simply as the Robes, who visited her in person multiple times in the 1980s. These beings imparted not only New Age wisdom about the coming expansion of consciousness on planet Earth, but also how in the coming decades, the world would begin moving in a very dark direction at the hands of a few very powerful and corrupt families.
Penny was an unemployed mother with 4 children on welfare, had a Kundalini awakening that just blasted her open, and all of a sudden, these little men in brown robes started appearing to her in her kitchen, her bedroom, her living room, and started showing her glimpses of the future.
I saw the 12 or 13 families who were members of the cabal, and they never called it the cabal. They always called it the families. That was their term, 12 or 13 families. I saw that it was mostly a business arrangement, and that there were some awful things that were happening. I might cry if I have to talk about them. They were so terrible. And what they pointed out was that the families, the cabal families, would become a huge obstacle to change. They would distract people with music, with entertainment, with food, with poor food especially, with all sorts of meaningless drivel, and people would go for that, and they would not focus on the reason they were here, which was to develop their consciousness.
For years, New World Order researchers have agreed that the highest echelon of the Illuminati consists of 13 specific families, each with their own special bloodlines. Through the work of researchers like Fritz Springmeier, the Christian prophecy community has largely embraced this revelation about the Illuminati families. believing it to be the blueprint for Satan's true endgame. However, the messages Penny Kelly received from these entities called the Robes nearly 40 years ago, as well as many other channeled messages received from supposedly benevolent spirits and ETs assisting in the elevation of humanity's consciousness, raised the disturbing possibility that the Illuminati's exposure is not the work of God, but of Satan. That the Illuminati are so frequently exposed by satanic spirits themselves should raise a serious red flag regarding the legitimacy of the New World Order as Satan's true endgame. For why would Satan directly reveal his ultimate plans to so many of those he clearly intends to deceive? What this and similar ET and spiritual encounters suggest is that, for some reason, in addition to humanity's indoctrination into the New Age worldview, Satan also finds it of the utmost importance that mankind learn of the Illuminati and their dark agenda against the human race, which again suggests the likelihood that the New World Order itself is a massive false flag.
We're talking about a worldwide fraternal organization that is powerful enough, old enough, and wise enough to operate behind all governments in the world, behind fraternal institutions, monetary systems in the world, and yes, they are in fact connected.
Mrs. Blavatsky, she's...
Helena Petrovna Blavatsky?
Right.
Yes, I have all of her works.
You have?
Yes.
Well, that's why... Yes.
I think her best work was Isis Unveiled, Part 2, which is theology.
Right. Science.
And that was an exceptional work. I think that Helena Petrovna Blavatsky, the Russian mystic, was a very wise and perceptive lady, and she had some very profound knowledge.
Helena Blavatsky and Alice Bailey, regarded as the founding mothers of the New Age movement, are often cited in New World Order research and documentaries as being part of the Illuminati agenda. However, their writings, which, like Penny Kelly's The Robes, were also the products of direct contact with spirits, lack any kind of program or support for a global takeover by the world's elite. Alice Bailey in particular expressed a strong distaste for totalitarianism. In her book, Problems of Humanity, she explained that one of the major problems humanity faced was a global network of powerful people who sought to keep the human race living in fear, hatred, and a constant state of war. She wrote, "The cause of all world unrest, of the world wars which have wrecked humanity and the widespread misery upon our planet, can largely be attributed to a selfish group with materialistic purposes who have for centuries exploited the masses and used the labor of mankind for their selfish ends. The responsibility for the widespread misery to be found today in every country in the world lies predominantly at the door of certain major interrelated groups of businessmen, bankers, executives of international cartels, monopolies, trusts and organizations, and directors of huge corporations who work for corporate or personal gain. Exploitation of manpower, the manipulation of the major planetary resources, and the promotion of war for private or business profit are characteristic of their methods. They form an international group, closely related, working in complete unity of idea and intention, and knowing and understanding each other. They have worked together before and through the entire period of the Second World War through interlocking directorates, under false names, and through deceptive organizations. They have stood behind governments and politicians. They have controlled the electorate. They have financed the world businesses and controlled oil, coal, power, light, and transportation. They control publicly or sub rosa, i.e. in secret, the world's banking accounts. They are again organized and renewing their methods. Their goals remain unchanged. Their international relationships remain unbroken. They constitute the greatest menace mankind faces today. They control politics. They buy prominent men in every nation. They ensure silence through threat, cash, and fear. They amass wealth and buy a spurious popularity through philanthropic enterprise. Their families live soft and easy lives and seldom know the meaning of God-ordained work. Although the Christian prophecy community typically believes Bailey was an integral part of the New World Order, her own words paint a very different picture. As we have just seen, Alice Bailey herself, High Priestess of the New Age, believed that most of the world's problems could be traced to a shadowy group of master puppeteers conspiring behind the scenes, creating the kind of world that suited their own greedy interests, a network of elites who perfectly fit the description of the Illuminati. Thus, Alice Bailey was not aligned with the Illuminati, as many have assumed, but rather was working in direct opposition to them. She believed herself to be a worker of light, fulfilling the plan of the Ascended Masters or Great White Brotherhood. To this end, Bailey warned the world of the Illuminati, who were aligned with the Dark Brotherhood, and of their evil plans for global domination. Therefore, in addition to being the mother of the New Age movement, Alice Bailey may also rightly be viewed as the mother of conspiracy theory, which is a direct offshoot of the New Age movement. The 1960s encapsulated the spirit of Alice Bailey's teachings and demonstrated the intimate connection between the New Age and conspiracy theory, both of which came into public view in the 60s. It was no accident that the anti-government culture of the 60s was dominated by New Age youth movements, and that the decade of the hippies was the same decade that saw the first usage of the term conspiracy theory, used in reference to alternative views of the Kennedy assassination. The anti-elitist conspiratorial attitude of the Aquarian flower children was perhaps best epitomized by Beatles member John Lennon, whose diatribe against the elite and calls for world peace are still famous among today's New Age conspiracy community.
I think all our society is run by insane people for insane objectives, and we're being run by maniacs for maniacal ends, you know. If anybody can put on paper what our government and the American government, etc., and the Russian, Chinese, what they are actually trying to do, you know, and what they think they're doing, I'd be very pleased to know what they think they're doing. I think they're all insane, you know, but I'm liable to be put away as insane for expressing that. You know, that's what's insane about it.
Since the 1960s, the conspiracy and New Age communities, working together, have developed a cohesive and inspiring narrative informing people about the dark hidden forces controlling the world and the spiritual means of overcoming them. Far from being an exception to the rule, Alice Bailey's deep-seated hatred for the secret elite of the world, conspiring against mankind, seems to be a definitive characteristic of the Aquarian spirit. Indeed, New Age spirituality and conspiracy theory are virtually incapable of existing independently of one another, as they seem to be partners in a joint Aquarian movement, with conspiracy theory revealing to us the nature of our enslavement and New Age spirituality providing the means of liberation.
Humanity is magic. Humanity can literally reach to the stars and beyond. The development of our species to this point is only the larval stage, and we're now going into a phase where we're literally in a cocoon and about to metamorphosize into something else. We can't even imagine our full potential, that you will bloom and that you will literally accelerate towards a higher level of enlightenment.
In the book, you refer to the destruction of the Twin Towers in New York, 9/11, as what some people say looked like a controlled explosion. And one might read that as you giving some credence to conspiracy theories.
You can read the book in whatever manner you would like to.
Do you believe that the Twin Towers were destroyed by forces of the American government or similar?
We have to remain open-minded to any kind of possibility. I think that there's an infinite creative force that generates all consciousness and all matter, and we are all connected. And if you align yourself with this infinite creative force, then you can be positive and you can be beautiful. I don't think it's a personal God. I don't believe in any particular doctrine or dogma, only that humanity is connected.
The inseparability of New Age spirituality and conspiracy theory can be explained by their shared spiritual heritage, for they are not separate realms of thought, but merely different branches on the same mystery school tree. The idea that mankind is imprisoned on Earth by dark forces is one of the key concepts of the mystery school teachings. and it's given special emphasis within an ancient form of occultism known as Gnosticism. The Gnostics taught that humanity was imprisoned in a fake, illusory reality created by a group of nefarious beings called archons, who purposely kept mankind disconnected from its true divine heritage in order to feed off its negative emotional energy, a concept that would be integrated into the plot of the Hollywood film The Matrix.
Do you know what I'm talking about? The Matrix. Do you want to know what it is? It is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth. What truth? That you are a slave, Neo. Like everyone else, you were born into bondage, born into a prison that you cannot smell or taste or touch. A prison for your mind.
And they're literally moving us step by grade into a matrix. We live in a matrix. We live in a cybernetic world that to a great extent is the manifestation of a higher dimensional reality of being that transcends our physical body.
Consciousness is in danger of being trapped, enmeshed in a sticky web of a low vibrational matrix, and millions and millions and millions and millions of souls are stuck in that web right now, and it is absolutely horrible. All they do is dominate and manipulate our world, the 3D world, and the matrix part of that world.
You've got to keep them in the perceptual box, and that's what this matrix does.
Like all branches of the mystery school tradition, Gnosticism maintains that all forms of life are divine manifestations of the Source, connected with God in like manner to drops of water in the ocean. And the Gnostics in particular had believed that for thousands of years, the archons, jealous of humanity's divine spark, had been suppressing the knowledge of our true spiritual potential, lest we rise above them and defeat them. Ancient Gnosticism, therefore, was the original conspiracy theory. And interestingly, this ancient conspiracy theory claimed that the one behind it all, the evil god of this world conspiring against mankind, was not the biblical Satan, but the biblical God, Jehovah or Yahweh, the vengeful God of the Old Testament who created the Garden of Eden, led the Israelites out of Egypt, and established the nation of Israel. Consequently, the Gnostics have historically viewed the serpent or Lucifer not as the devil responsible for mankind's fall, but the Savior responsible for mankind's salvation, as it was he who offered the gift of enlightenment to Adam and Eve, thereby awakening their inner divine light, which the evil and jealous Jehovah or Yahweh wanted to suppress. Therefore, if the New World Order is actually a massive false flag operation, as I have suggested, Gnosticism provides the spiritual basis for blaming it on the God of the Bible. And as today's conspiracy narrative demonstrates, this seems to be exactly what's happening.
We don't intend to spend a whole lot of time on the Illuminati, but just enough to familiarize yourself if you've never heard of the organization. It was founded in 1776 in the south of Germany by a man named Adam Weishaupt. He formulated his plans in relation to the House of Rothschild in England, Germany, France, Italy. The Rothschild banking dynasty behind the governments of Europe hired Adam Weishaupt to formulate a plan for the world at that time to accomplish certain goals for those in power. That plan came to be known as the Illuminati plan. Here we have a book called The Teachings of Freemasonry. And we'll find that on the book of Teachings of Freemasonry, you have the Jewish Star of David, because in fact, Freemasonry is Jewish. The Pope's headdress, the papal headdress, goes back to an ancient Jewish headdress. And of course, the Pope wears the yarmulke, and so does the cardinals wear the yarmulke. But in particular, The Pope's headdress is shown here as Freemasonic. This is from a Freemasonic research book, a volume on Freemasonry and the garb of Freemasons. And here we had one Freemason with the Jewish breastplate and the papal headdress. Even the Liberty Bell, the symbol of liberty, an equal Liberty Bell, identical with the same crack, is found in Moscow. It's a very famous Liberty Bell of Moscow with the same crack. It becomes known as a symbol, the symbol of the Brotherhood of the Bell. Bel being B-E-L, the ancient god in the Mesopotamian Valley, being the one that we call Beelzebub or Belteshazzar or Yahweh. Jehovah's kingdom on earth is nothing more than a Masonic kingdom.
Like the Gnostics of old, today's leading conspiracy theorists, many of whom openly admit their Gnostic allegiance, claim that the archons, led by the God of the Old Testament, Yahweh, have been mentally and spiritually enslaving humanity for centuries, if not millennia, by keeping it imprisoned in a fake, simulated version of reality, just like the one portrayed in the film The Matrix. And, just like the ancient Gnostics, conspiracy theorists insist that the archons and their human minions, the Illuminati, have been suppressing secret knowledge. This secret knowledge, supposedly kept hidden from us by the global elite, just so happens to be the very same knowledge that the serpent deceived Eve into believing that God was keeping from her. While conspiracy theorists often condemn the so-called occult agenda of the Illuminati, conspiracy theorists themselves are fulfilling the true occult agenda, one much greater and more deceptive than the New World Order. Occult simply means hidden or secret, and just like the serpent in the Garden of Eden, the New Age conspiracy community is deceiving mankind into believing that a great secret has been kept from us, that we are God.
Humans are still prisoners. We're still trapped. So this whole battle that's been fought above the earth and on the earth and under the earth and energetically through the minds of people are literally to break enslavement, because humans are enslaved. But the system has been going so long and is so clever that the vast majority of people don't understand what they are and how they're being trapped and how they're being tricked and how they're being lied to.
People really don't know what kind of a being they are, and because of that, which is in many cases kept purposely away from them, they're manipulated. Your birthright's being stolen away from you, just like the story of Jacob and Esau. It's being stolen away from people, and the problem is it's being stolen away primarily to tell them things that they are not. We are actually the, if you want to call it, the incarnation of the I Am that said, let there be light in the universe, as human beings in this world, and there's other beings of other types that are across the cosmos that are incarnations of the same I Am.
This is the great secret. And the great evil of the New World Order engineers is that they fully understand this primal rule. And they have made the greedy, selfish decision to keep these great truths from humanity that would fulfill and empower our species. They are afraid of you finding your true potential and power, because when you become enlightened and awakened and expand your horizons, you threaten their monopoly of power and control.
The biggest secret that the people must not realize, it's not this data about the technology or the visitors or the existence of the visitors. It's our own power. This is the biggest secret.
It's our own power, exactly.
It's our own power that we must not realize, because the greater secret is who we are, what we can do, what we can be, and they've got to keep us in our box, otherwise their game is over.
They don't want us to know about our co-creative conscious abilities, because they use those as a tool against us. So if by us liberating our consciousness, we are taking away a tool that negative forces use to enslave us.
We come into contact with a body of information that has been kept secret for thousands and thousands of years. And the reason why is that with this information comes the potential for what is called apotheosis, Apotheosis means human becomes God, because they believe themselves to be gods where no one else is. And so what happens is they do not want us to know this, because if we knew that the pyramid could bring us to a godlike state, then we would start building them and we'd start using them, and they don't want us to have the technology. So they flaunt it right in front of you. They put it on the dollar bill.
We now have a clear picture of the larger agenda which the grand false flag operation known as the New World Order is meant to serve. The New World Order itself is the problem which Satan created and is now exposing in order to force a reaction from humanity, who will then demand that something be done about it. The revelation or disclosure of the great secret, the satanic lie that man is God, the great secret that has been hidden from us by the Illuminati and their Archon masters. By manufacturing a massive conspiracy to keep the knowledge that man is God's secret, Satan has not only made his lie seem attractive, but true. As it is often said, the cover-up is worse than the crime. People, typically those in power, cover up what they don't want the public to know. And the only reason there is a cover-up is because there is something to hide. Satan has brilliantly applied this concept, what might be called the cover-up effect, to the lie that man is God. For nothing will convince humanity more that it truly is God than the shocking revelation that a global conspiracy has been suppressing this knowledge for centuries. For why would so many powerful people over the course of so many generations go to such great lengths to suppress something that wasn't true? Once the great secret of man's divinity has finally been revealed, mankind will then be able to awaken to the truth and escape the global prison created by the Archons. Therefore, the true satanic agenda preparing the world for the arrival of the biblical Antichrist is not a global prison, but a global prison break. It is not the Matrix, but the escape from the Matrix.
What we will tell you is that those dark agendas are crumbling from the inside and have been for the past several years. So even as darker actions are tried to be achieved on this planet, they are being, shall we say, dismantled energetically from forces that none of you can see.
The greatest clue to this agenda can be found in Alice Bailey's book, A Treatise on White Magic, a comprehensive guide to the 15 rules of white magic and the tasks which all New Age disciples must perform in order to be considered true white magicians. According to Bailey, the most important task of all was assisting in the release of what she called the prisoners of the planet, who were being held captive by the black magicians. And given her diatribe against an international group of businessmen, bankers, and corporations working in unison behind the scenes, it's quite clear that Bailey's black magician prison wardens are one and the same with the Illuminati of today's conspiracy theory narrative, and that the New World Order is the prison from which humanity must be released by the white magicians, the human counterparts of the Ascended Masters or Great White Brotherhood. The release of Earth's prisoners is an integral part of the great divine plan which Bailey claimed was ultimately being overseen by the leader of the Ascended Masters, Sanat Kumara, who Bailey referred to as the Lord of the World, which is the same title given to Satan in the Bible, who is also described as a great deceiver who masquerades as an angel of light. The fulfillment of the divine plan through the release of Earth's prisoners is precisely the purpose which Alex Jones, David Icke, Jordan Maxwell, David Wilcock, and the rest of the New Age conspiracy community is serving. As illumined white magicians, they are leading a Gnostic rebellion against the black magicians controlling the planet, telling us that in order to rise above the dark forces, we must collectively raise our consciousness. Bailey's words reveal the truly occult nature of conspiracy theory, and suggests that this growing New Age rebellion against the New World Order is, in reality, an occult civil war between white and black magic. And by exposing the black magic elites and spreading the lie that man is God, the white magicians are carrying out Bailey's instructions, affecting the release of the planet's prisoners from the Matrix, and paving the way for humanity's spiritual ascension.
George Humphrey, my friend, has written the new book that just came out, available at Amazon.com, Life, Love, Joy, A Story of Humans' Origins, the Polarity of Present Choices, and Our Unrealized Potential. And everything the globalists do is about suppressing our potential. And George's such a sweetheart. He's selling this book at cost, but it's a powerful book. I just started reading it. Everything that social engineers do is about suppressing human potential. Everything they do is about cutting off resources. Everything they do is about telling us we're ugly, we're bad, we're no good, when we're not. Again, we're fallen because we are bought into this system. And this system's doing everything it can from keeping us from ascending.
Absolutely. There is more energy coming into our solar system. This is not some new age theory. It's just a fact, is that the different polarities, what we call the dark and the light, the yin and yang, are getting more powerful. The dark is getting darker and the light's getting brighter. And the point is that each and every one of us as human beings have a choice. We can continue to be controlled by the cultural zeitgeist, which is like the Hunger Games, and being controlled by the synthetic manipulation. You, perhaps myself, many of the people listening, we've broken out of what's called the cultural zeitgeist, the synthetic matrix, and we are more connected with our morphogenic field and connected with the universal, which is universal law, natural law, and what we've really
broken out of the control paradigm.
Yes, and we are able, if we continue to keep going, to I don't want to get too esoteric here, but to activate the energy systems within our body, which are called chakras, and to become clearer and more aware and more full of light and more self-powerful. We have the DNA to become just incredible beings of multidimensional consciousness, to bring love and consciousness and do the right thing.
The Pentagon says we must stop independent, self-empowered individuals. The threat, they said, was independently conscious individuals outside of the controls grid.
Of course it is.
They actually admit they're scared of that.
Of course it is, because it's all about power.
This is why the outward expression of the manipulation, human society and what goes on there, should be communicated, and for me has to be communicated with the nature of reality and the nature of who we are, because then we can not only see how this plays out, but how it can unplay out. We have given our minds away to a perceptual program that gives us a particular perception of reality and a particular perception of self. We have the ability to take power over that program back anytime we choose. But the program is constantly telling us we don't have that power because it's self-preserving itself. And what happens when people so-called wake up, which means wake up from the program or start to? I am little me becomes I am infinite me, and therefore the amount of possibility and probability that we are interacting with massively expands. Yes. So what you manifest in the feedback loop of perception becomes experience reality dramatically changes. When you expand your awareness beyond the program, beyond the postage stamp as I call it, you're now tapping into levels of reality that are beyond the program. Who is the I? Are you little me I, in which case you will live a little me life? Or are you infinite me I, in which case your life will be dramatically different? Because possibility is only what we believe it to be. Change your perception, change your life. Because your life is your perception. We take our perception back, we take our lives back.
That is what people need to understand loud and clear. They do have that power. They need to understand how to identify the actual I, not the little me, but the real true self. And so they can start aligning with that and break free of this matrix.
In order to escape the matrix, humanity must first believe it is living in a matrix. This is the purpose of the matrix disclosure, to convince mankind of 3 beliefs. First, that the New World Order or control matrix is real. Second, that our reality is an illusion or dream from which we must awaken, a view which is increasingly being embraced by mainstream scientists, philosophers, and technological innovators. And thirdly, that each of us is an eternal being, an individual expression of the universal God consciousness. Once mankind accepts these 3 beliefs, it will awaken from the dream world or the great illusion, destroy the matrix, overthrow its architects, and usher in a false golden age on the earth, fulfilling Paul's words, "For when they say peace and safety, then sudden destruction comes upon them, as labor pains upon a pregnant woman, and they shall not escape." This false age of peace and safety will be predicated on the false belief that evil and darkness have finally been defeated, and that the great secret of man's true godlike potential has finally been revealed. The stage will then be set for the arrival of the biblical Antichrist, who will present himself not as a political leader thirsty for power, but as a spiritual teacher eager to serve mankind and lead it into a more peaceful, democratic, and enlightened future, free from all the evil, corruption, and darkness of the old world. He will not be the tyrannical head of the New World Order, but mankind's savior from it, like Neo in The Matrix or Luke Skywalker in the original Star Wars trilogy, a concept which perfectly coincides with the Gnostic belief in the serpent being man's liberator from the Garden of Eden, the original Matrix.
There seems to be a divine mandate in heaven that in all periods of darkness, when there seems to be darkness encroaching on the human family, that the spirit of the universe calls out individual people and your spirit is moved to do something to help your fellow man, to be a teacher. And so there have always been teachers who have been called in the last and final parts of a dark time on the earth, where the universe puts it into certain people's hearts to be like an avatar, to be like a teacher. And it's true. Every time the world is heading into darkness, it seems like God or the divine presence in the universe moves certain people in their heart to stand up against the darkness and help their fellow man, like the scripture says, just carry even one candle will light a darkened world. So I believe that there is something to this idea that God raises up individuals to enlighten his fellow man in dark periods of history.
It is now time for the greatest false flag operation in history to enter its final stages. Satan has spent centuries creating the problem, the New World Order, and it's now time to expose it, force a reaction, offer the solution, and falsely blame it all on the God of the Bible, who, through religions like Christianity, has sought to control mankind by indoctrinating it with a depraved, sinful view of itself. As a result of this propaganda, true believers in Christ will be seen as being part of the dark globalist agenda. For believing that they are saved by the blood of Christ, believers are increasingly being perceived as satanic, brainwashed by the same religion of blood sacrifice practiced by the Illuminati. This narrative will provide the perfect justification for the persecution of Christians, which the Bible tells us will reach its peak in the last days. Through the Matrix disclosure, Satan is reenacting his initial encounter with Eve on a massive worldwide scale, deceiving all of mankind into thinking that a great secret has been kept from us, and that we must eat the apple or take the red pill in order to realize the truth, that we are all God, and that Yahweh or Jehovah is the real devil or Satan, mankind's true adversary, who, ever since the Garden of Eden, has been trying to keep us enslaved in a false reality in order to keep us from realizing who we truly are.
Now I'm going to get into the great tree of knowledge and the wisdom that has been denied us by someone who does not want us to have this knowledge. About 3,600 years ago, the earth was invaded by something called the archons. And what these archons are is they do not possess the divine essence that we possess. And they're really jealous of us for that. And so they're creating a world, this is what the Nag Hammadi says, a simulated world all around us. It's all simulated. And the point of the archons, according to Nag Hammadi, is to make you think that their reality is the reality, not the real reality.
Let's look at what the Gnostic writings from 2,000 years ago say about these archons, that they are able to create something that they call HAL, H-A-L, which translates as, wait for it, virtual realities.
There is an energy on this planet called the archons, it's called the black goo, whatever you want to call it.
Once you understand what is going on here, you can free yourself of the archons. And I believe the archons are here. And I believe they're everywhere. And I think they are a virus. I think they get inside of us. And they make us think that the fake world is real. That's the archons. They don't want us to find out what's going on. The Gnostics believed that there was a false god. And this false god was trying to convince us that we were nothing.
They talk about the demiurge being a fake god that created the physical material reality that we perceive, and they relate this to the Judeo-Christian Yahweh Jehovah God. They also relate it in effect to what people call Satan or the devil as well.
Being the one that we call Beelzebub or Belteshazzar or Yahweh.
So I suspect that's who told us we can't have the fruit of the tree of knowledge. This is what they don't want you to know, because that means you're part of God. You're part of the creative essence, okay? And these archons don't want you to know this.
You are the voice in this plane of existence of the Creator God. The spirit in you is not a separate spirit. It is the I am.
We as human beings represent the highest vibration of potential vibration of universal consciousness.
God is experiencing consciousness through all of us, and we are it. We are God.
We are all powerful. We are consciousness. We are awareness. We are a point of attention within the great infinite forever. And that's what the conspiracy wants us to forget, that we are the ocean. They want us to think we're just the droplet, the little me. That's why the only way this world is going to change, this reality is going to change, is when there is a consciousness shift, an expansion of consciousness beyond time and space, beyond the bounds of time and space. And there is the gateway to that this system wants to shut. We have been subjected to, not just these generations, but for generations untold, is a gigantic hoax. A hoax that has sold us a fake reality, a fake version of how we should live our lives, and thus they have enslaved infinite awareness in a perception of little me. The fascist global state is not coming because we're not freaking having it anymore. And we are not any longer going to be manipulated into manifesting our own enslavement.
This is the animating contest of liberty. This fight is meant to grow your muscles culturally, spiritually, intellectually, to be even stronger, to be able to deal with the incredible developments that humans are about to have. This is the ascension of humanity that's happening right now, and the globalists are trying to suppress it.
The way out of this is through our co-creative conscious abilities and waking up.
As we wake people up, they then manifest what's always been there.
We need to see through this mirage, see through the illusion. Wake up, wake up, wake up.
Once we wake up and turn our attention to them, they're done for.
when we're aware, game over. Because then humans are going next level. We're designed to defeat this.
We don't want your culture anymore. We don't want your wars. We don't want anything that you're giving us. We're done with you. That's what's really going on here. The hippie movement was the beginning of this. And now it's our turn to lead the way. And that is really the mission, I think, of our generation. My generation is not to be the ones who survive the golden age, but be the ones who lead the next generation into this knowledge so that they can find out what's going on.
For the wave of consciousness and the growth of what you refer to as the golden age on this planet has to come to pass. There is no way around it.
Do we believe the Archon's BS story that this is a much better place, this imitated world that they built for us? And I say it isn't. I say we need to get back to the garden.
Age has begun. An age of freedom.
World events are concentrating people's minds on the fact that the world isn't like they thought it was, and they don't like the way the world's going. They feel uneasy about it, and that has got people in greater numbers to look at what I've written in the past, which is basically saying the world that we have now and we're going deeper into is the one that's been planned all along.
And now you arrive in certain countries in the world and the mainstream media comes out to greet you because what you have had to say over time has borne out to be true.
The elites that are in positions of power in Hollywood, Washington, D.C., governments across the world are involved in pedophilia, Satanism, and the trafficking of children.
Stephen Colbert is a pedophile.